What is up, my friends? Welcome to Shelf Top Games. I'm your turtle host, and today we'll be doing a casual review of the 1 to 5 player game Mind Management, designed by Jay Cormier and Senfong Lim, published by Off the Page Games. It is also important to mention that this game is based off of a comic series, but reading that comic series is not mandatory to enjoy this game. So, what's in the box? Well, actually, before we get into what's in the box, what's on the box? So, if you take a look over here, the creators did something pretty nifty. There's secret writing if you hold this at the right angle in the light, and you can even get a skull. Ah, there it is. If you hold it the right way over that creepy girl's face. So, pretty cool. You got an instruction booklet, a nice laminated mini map for the recruiter so that they can write all over this, a covering wall for the recruiter so that nobody can see what they're doing and they can be as sneaky as they want to be. The main board for everybody else, 2 dry erase markers, blue and black, an empty bag. That's okay. Your brains, because how can you play mind management, without your brains? Okay. Oh, and your feet. You're gonna need your feet for this game too. Mind slip tokens, mayhem tokens, round marker, which you can actually look through and everything looks red. It's pretty cool. Recruits and extra stands. And here you got your rogue agents as standees. They got nifty little pictures on the back. I don't know what they mean. I probably need to read the comic to understand that. Your immortals, which all look like skulls on the back. Again, I don't really understand it. Probably need to read the comic to understand that, but still cool. Seriously, what do these words even mean? Pack of cards. And a really cool system we're going to talk about in just a moment that uses these shift boxes. So these shift boxes, there's 7 of them for the rogue agents and 7 of them for the recruiter. They're numbered 1 through 7. And they get opened up as you play the game. And that's going to be really cool. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So, what is this game? Mind Management, or Mind MGMT, is a hidden movement game where one recruiter tries to move around the board and recruit 12 people from specific features on the map before the rogue agent, these 4 right here, can capture them. The recruiter also wins if they can manage to avoid capture all the way to the end of the game, times 16. The game always plays in a 1 vs 4 fashion, regardless of actual player count at the table. So to set up, several mayhem tokens are placed on the board. These locations can't be touching and are decided by the player starting with the recruiter. These will serve as an impassable barrier for pieces moving around the city. So, for instance, the recruiter will go first, and they can place it anywhere on the map, let's say right here. The rogue agents will go then. They can't place it next to it, but they can place it somewhere else, like here. And it just keeps going on and on until all 5 are placed. What the mayhem does is it blocks figures like immortals and rogue agents from simply crossing over. Players can use these barriers strategically to help them towards victory. Now this time token here is going to mark the time of the game, and this is going to move up each time the recruiter moves 1 space. This way, players can track where the recruiter has been according to the specific time slots. This is helpful for the rogue agents who are trying to figure out the recruiter's path of the city. Knowing where they've been at 2 o'clock versus 7 o'clock makes all the difference. So every single time the recruiter ends their turn, the round marker goes up, and each time the round marker hits a red spot like so, they have to reveal to the rogue agents how many recruits they were able to get. So let's say between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock, they were able to get 2 recruits. They would have to show that by placing 2 recruits next to the 7 o'clock. During setup, rogue agents need to start on the outside edges of the board, whereas immortals need to start on the inside areas of the board. So the recruiter gets to start anywhere they want at the beginning of the game. They mark it down on their little laminated map, and then they're going to draw 3 cards in order to show which features they'll be looking for throughout the game. These features are going to represent where they're going to find their recruits. And remember, they need 12 recruits in order to win the game. The recruiter moves 5 spaces to get a head start, making sure that they never return to his place that they've already been, and then gameplay proceeds back and forth between the recruiters and the rogue agents. Also, these dry erase markers are utilized throughout the game by both the recruiter and the rogue agents. The players are actually going to be drawing on the components. So, for example, the recruiter is going to be drawing on their little laminated map to keep track of their movement, while the rogue agents are going to be using these brain tokens to basically write down, I guess, whatever the heck they want that helps them keep track of where they think the recruiter might be. So, for instance, I might say, maybe 6 o'clock, question mark, maybe over here at this temple. Drawing on these components is going to feel really, really, really weird at first because every fiber of your being is telling you, don't draw on the game components, but eventually, you do it enough times, it doesn't feel so bad anymore. So at the start of the game, the recruiter gets to choose any box to start their recruiter on. It could be any box, even one underneath a rogue agent, but let's say they want to start right here. They draw a number 1 over here, and that would show, hey, I was here at 1 o'clock. After drawing your 3 feature cards, you'd find the symbols that match up on the map, and you'd draw a circle on each one. So for the Phoenix one over here, you would draw a circle here, over here, over here, one for each Phoenix that you see. You do that for all 3, and basically what it means is if you move your recruiter onto a place with a circle, you get to have a recruit. So before the rogue agents do any actions, the recruiter is allowed to take 4 more movements, and they're trying to get as many recruits as possible. So let's say if they take this path over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they'd pick up 1, 2, 3 recruits in total by 5 o'clock. The recruiters and the rogue agents are also going to have several neat abilities throughout the game to also spice up the game of cat and mouse. For instance, in addition to movement, the rogue agents are also able to ask, reveal, shake down, capture, and also use an ally card if they have one available. So the rogue agents have a few actions at their disposal to help them out. So obviously they can move up to 2 spaces orthogonally. They can also ask. So asking is very helpful because it allows the rogue agents to choose a certain feature and ask, have you been to any of these features on the map? And the recruiter, if they've been to at least one, they have to take one of these fancy feat tokens and they're going to place it on one that they've been to. It could be any one that they've been to as long as they're being truthful about it. And then on top of that, to take it a step further, rogue agents can choose to reveal. So if an agent goes to one of these feat, they can ask, well, you know what? I need help. What time were you at this foot? And the recruiter has no choice but to tell them. So for instance, if they were here at 3 o'clock, you now know for a fact the recruiter was here at 3 o'clock. And obviously there's the action to win the game, which is capturing. If your rogue agent happens to be on the same spot that the recruiter currently is on their secret little map, you capture them and you win. And on the other hand, the recruiter can also use a mind slip token. So for instance, if they were Pipe Girl, they're able to move diagonally 2 spaces. So what this means is from this location here, they can actually move all the way over to here and break the regular rules of moving orthogonally. This really, really can mess with the rogue agents. Or they can move and utilize one of their 4 immortals spaced out on the board. So if this scary looking immortal figure moves over here, because it's on top of the rogue agent, that rogue agent will not be allowed to capture, reveal, or ask, and will have to move out of this location in order to continue its regular actions. Could be a really, really large hindrance to the rogue agent players. But they're also able to do things like capturing. So, at the beginning of the game, the recruiter is going to reveal 2 additional feature cards that's public information. If there are 2 immortals on matching locations, for instance this pool pass, they're going to be able to capture and get an additional recruit. So on the recruiter's turn, they have to move themselves once by adding a number to this board. So if they're moving at 6 o'clock and let's say they want to go south, they would draw 6 right here to remind themselves that's where I was at 6 o'clock. and they're also going to move an immortal once. The immortals can move diagonally or orthogonally, just like so, or like this. Okay. On the rogue agent's turn, they're going to activate any two of their agents. The gameplay continues like this until the recruiter is captured or the recruiter accomplishes their goals. And each one of these rogue agents are going to come with a unique special ability, custom to themselves, that's really going to help the rogue agents find and capture the recruiter. Bill Falls can move an immortal one space. Meru can detect if there's a recruiter within 2 spaces of her. Dusty allows for free movement actions, and Henry Lime blocks immortals from being able to recruit. It's important to note that the game also includes a pretty cool system called the Shift system, in which the loser of a game gets to open one of 7 boxes that makes the game easier for them going forward. It's a nice way to balance the game if someone's constantly losing, and it also helps with customization and replayability of the game. Boxes are sealed, and they're only open when somebody loses, so I will not spoil any of the features here. So, what do I like about this game? Well, to start, I gotta give it to the creators. They really, really paid homage to their source material. They really cared about things that were outside of just gameplay. If you look at the box and other components, you'll see these little quotes and these little secrets and writing in red and blue scattered all over the box and the cards. And I feel like that's really, really neat because it doesn't actually add to gameplay. There's a comic on the back of the maps and whatnot, but it's just something a little bit extra just to immerse you a little bit deeper into the world of mind management. Just look. They put this giant comic strip on the back of the game board that really doesn't add to gameplay, but it's there if you want it. So many secrets and codes in this box. What do they all mean? Also, the game does an amazing job with their cat and mouse hidden movement formula. I love the fact that the other 4 players can't see where the recruiter is moving, but the recruiter can't go back to a place that they've already been to, which kind of also gives big hints to the other people trying to find out where the recruiter is, and then there's special abilities between the 2 of them, and it makes for a really, really interesting chase and a clash of minds. And then the game turns into this giant battle of wits where the recruiter is just trying to stay one step ahead of the rogue agents. And the rogue agents are all scrambling and losing their minds and using all these brain tokens and putting them all over the board, just trying to find out, maybe the recruiter was here, maybe they were here, I'm not sure. Maybe they were somewhere else, and they're painting this picture in their mind that might not actually be what it looks like on the recruiter's map. And if it isn't, the recruiter's probably going to be trying to hide their smile the entire game. But if it is, you're going to make the recruiter sweat, and then you're going to build this tension in this game that you don't really find in other games. And honestly, when you're playing as the rogue agents, there's no feeling that quite compares to when you're doing your best to track the recruiter. You're doing your best to, put your white brains where you think they may have gone or may not have gone, and then you take a guess and you put your rogue agent on a spot and say, you know what, I think you might be here. I'm going to take my action. I'm going to capture you. Are you there? And then when the recruiter just loses and says, like, yes, I was there. How did you know? You just feel like a genius. Obviously, there are a lot of times with this game you're going to feel like an idiot too. But those times, those moments where you guessed right and you win, man, does it feel good. Capturing your opponent in this game and winning as the rogue agents is one of the most satisfying, amazing feelings you can have in board gaming. And I know that looking at this game table right now, it kind of looks like a mess. It kind of looks confusing with the immortals and the rogue agents and the white brains and the mayhem walls everywhere. But another thing that I like about this game, a big pro, it comes with a training mode. And on top of that, in the instruction booklet, it highlights all the training mode changes in green so that you don't read the ones in red and you only read the ones in green, and it makes for a much easier experience that gets you into the core mechanics of the game, and it lets you experience this game's cat and mouse mechanic in its simplest form before moving on to adding more complicated variables. And let's not forget about the shift system. This elevates this game so much, in my opinion. I mean, the game itself is pretty darn good and very fun, but these shift boxes, especially when it's the first time you're opening them and you don't know what crazy power up you're going to get to help you beat your opponent next round, it's exciting, I'd say, for both sides just to see, like, what are you going to get? What are you going to get? This seems like something you'd find in a legacy game, but this game uses it really well as a balancing method to make sure one person doesn't win too many times and also to add a fresh spin on each game. And my last positive about this game is going to depend largely on your game group. I would say normally this game lasts about half an hour to an hour, which is really nice because it means that you can get multiple games in just one sitting and have a good time with it. Now, if your game group is a little bit more thinky, and if your game group takes a long time and is very susceptible to analysis paralysis, that's where this becomes a con against this game. Which leads us to what some people might not like about this game. So, just a few seconds ago, game length was a pro, but, and I've seen this happen many times, when the rogue agents are just sitting there, not knowing where the recruiter went, not knowing how their brains and all their clues that they wrote down, not knowing how they match up, they just kind of sit there and they think and they think and they think. And what used to be fun for the recruiter, watching them squirm, has now just become a big waiting game, hoping and praying that your opponent makes their move so that you can finally do your one move action to the next square in an attempt to get more recruits. Which brings us to the next point where, yes, this game has the potential to be very unfun, especially for the rogue agents. If they've just completely lost the trail of the recruiter, they could just be sitting there scratching their heads, frustrated and wanting to throw the game pieces across the room because they have no idea where the recruiter went. Is it kind of interesting at the end of the game to be like, hey, look, I was here the whole time, I lost you over there? Yeah, that could be a fun conversation, but sometimes experiencing that frustration of just not knowing what's going on can drive some people crazy. And sometimes you weave this horrible, horrible mess for yourself with all these little clues that you could have sworn was correct, and then all of a sudden your opponent puts down a foot, and then your entire theory goes out the window, and yeah, it could be frustrating. And also, there is quite a bit to remember in this game. The training mode, yes, is very helpful, but when you throw in the immortals, and you throw in the player abilities, and you throw in the walls of mayhem, and you throw in all the shift boxes, it really adds up to a bunch to remember. And I mean, honestly, you might forget what Henry Lime does. You might forget what Bill Falls does, and that could be your downfall, especially if they have an ability that's really bad for you in a location where you didn't really foresee because you can't remember all the faces on the board. Seriously, the first few times I've played this game, I could not remember what each rogue agent's abilities were, and not knowing something as important as that with the people trying to catch you can really, really sour the experience a little bit. Also, player count. I think this game is beautiful at two players. One player controlling the recruiter, one player controlling the rogue agents. But when you add more and more people, I mean, again, I guess this depends on your gamer group. Some people are just going to be kind of sitting there. If they did their action, they're just going to wait for everybody else to do theirs, and they won't be able to move their character again for, a while, because once you activate, you got to put your character on its side and wait for your next turn. Some people are going to want to control everything on the board for the rogue agent. Some people are going to have a strategy and be like, I want to move this way and then move this person over here. But when you're only controlling one or two rogue agents, you can't make all the decisions. You can advise, but doesn't necessarily mean that your teammates need to follow what you think is best. And that might lead to a bunch of arguments as well. And last but not least, the artwork. some people are not going to be a big fan of how these characters and these locations are drawn. Although it might be true to the comics, like I said, it might not be for you. I understand that aesthetics is a major part of a game nowadays, and if it turns you off, it turns you off. But me personally, although I don't really like it, I look past it, I played the game, love the gameplay, and the artwork doesn't really bother me so much anymore. And so, overall, I think this game is really fun. I mean, if you like hidden movement, you're gonna love this game. I tend to play as the rogue agents, and yes, I get frustrated. Yes, I'm scratching my head and I'm just freaking out trying to figure out where this recruiter is, but at the same time, it's kind of just fun and kind of nice to just sit there and just try to figure out what's going on, because when you do figure it out, you're gonna feel amazing. And if you don't, you have a really fun story to kind of look at when the recruiter's like showing you all the places they've been and all the places that you've messed up. And I mean, hey, the game expects you to play through this multiple times. They've implemented a system that is pretty much telling you, hey, don't worry, play it again. We're going to give you something nice to make the experience a little bit different and a little bit better. And you can kind of just keep track of all your gameplays on this nifty little tracker sheet on the back of the instruction booklet, so that even if you put away the game for a while, when you open it up, you take a look at that and you can pick up right where you left off. So if you like hidden movement games, if you like heavy thinking games and deducing, mind management might be for you. I wouldn't recommend this game if you easily get frustrated or you have very little patience watching your opponents try to figure things out. I give this game a gold shell.
Hey, Bunny's here! Mind Management is an excellent game for 2 players. If you're into hidden movement genre, you will enjoy playing as a recruiter. But if you like to be Sherlock Holmes, choose the rogue agents. Overall, I have to say this is such a balanced game with all the mechanics that are crammed into it. I highly recommend something to cover your face if you're playing as a recruiter, especially if you have a terrible poker face. I give this game a gold carrot.
And so, thank you for joining us today. If there's anything that you'd like to add, as always, comment in the section below. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. We'll see you next time.